with an increase in the growing number of Bitcoiners from both sides of the aisle, that's going to affect your vote at some point. Here at the IBC, one of our pillars is education. I created a 16-week course for financial literacy and Bitcoin education. The Altgeld Bitcoin Reserve by a shepherd. This guy's amazing. He created the first community strategic reserve. Altgeld was not taken care of, and now it's an area of poverty in Chicago. Tobias is helping raise funds in Bitcoin as its own community Bitcoin reserve. First officially recognized. And along with Senator Cabello, they got that put through the House. And we're in the process of building the Illinois Bitcoin Foundation, a 501c3. We have the advocacy initiative. In the near future, we have a list of proposed pieces of legislation. Currently, the IBC is just helping in a support role, trying to help promote it, trying to get the word out there.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Nova. Today, I'm here with Tim Neimeyer, and I am so excited to talk to you because you're doing such incredible things in Bitcoin. You're a teacher. You're actually with me on break right now, which is incredible. I mean, you are just nonstop working and promoting Bitcoin adoption in Illinois. You created the Illinois Bitcoin Council, seeing all the work you're putting in, all the connections you're making, and I'm just so excited for what you're building. And so can you tell us how you got started in all of this?
Well, thank you, Staci. That's very kind of you to say. Well, I got started in education right out of high school. I went to the Air Force and did 4 years there, and then got into education. I've been doing that elementary, 4th, 5th grade, currently a music teacher. This is my 19th year. So I've been an educator my whole life, right? And I got into Bitcoin back in 2018. And just like started like everybody else, kind of like, number go up. You want to just figure out what's going on. And it was an easy sell for me because I already had kind of the libertarian background, decentralization, understanding. So once I started reading more and more, it just clicked. And once I understood it to a certain level, the educator side of me kicked in. And all I wanted to do was teach, try and help people understand what I've learned. I started writing. I did some writing, guest writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Got to do work with Wiser. I don't know if you know Wiser app. Helped develop their FUD unit. And that led me into getting into like creating my own YouTube channel. And I did that for a year with Zoom Out, where I was trying to do bite-sized chunks of education to help normies understand Bitcoin, which that led me to writing History Echoes Bitcoin. And like each iteration was just a little different, a little more.
I have it.
See it up there.
Yes.
Yeah. And that led me to, I started doing part-time freelance writing for Mara, the publicly traded Bitcoin miner. And just this last year, I was thinking, well, how else can I help Bitcoin adoption? And, I kind of believe in that whole think globally, act locally kind of idea. And Bitcoin allows for that in a much grander scale. And that led me to the Illinois Bitcoin Council, which we just started, a 501c6 focused on Bitcoin adoption, education, advocacy, and collaboration. And started that this last spring, and here we are now.
You're educating policymakers, getting them to understand Bitcoin. Even what you posted about Square, you post such important content that as a business owner, I didn't even realize what was coming up with the Square POS systems and how you'll be able to pay with Bitcoin in November. And I was so excited when I saw that. So I switched, I got Square, and I just recently set it up, and I realized that you can already convert sales into Bitcoin already. I thought started in November as well, but I guess that was already happening since last year, the spring of last year, possibly. So as soon as we switched, we're already converting sales into Bitcoin, which I'm super excited about. And I wouldn't have known unless you shared this information. And every little bit helps. Like every business that's helping themselves save in Bitcoin and also saving on processing fees. So thank you for for sharing that information. You even hosted a meetup for the Illinois Bitcoin Council, and that's where we first met.
Right.
And it was so nice meeting these incredible people.
Well, I appreciate that. You said something, kind of education. That's my thing. The phrase, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I tend to go that route, especially with Bitcoin. While I do believe, I know, not to get too meta, but in right or wrong, good and bad, I truly look at everything as like, is the person making the decision have the appropriate information, or do they not? Or do they have some level of misinformation? Right. And that's how I tend to approach conversations with policymakers or business owners or whatever. Is, okay, they're making this decision, or they're whatever they're doing, but do they really know what they're talking about, or do they just think they know, and is there other information? And that's kind of where I go with it. There was a study done last year, by, I believe, Troy Cross. Can't remember if it's the Bitcoin Policy Institute, um, where they surveyed Bitcoin owners and tried to determine, like, what's the biggest factor in people owning Bitcoin? Is it like political ideology or economic ideology, or is it gender, or is it race, or whatever? And the biggest factor was, how much do they know about it? The more they know about Bitcoin, the more they're willing to own it. And that kind of gives us a little bit more credence in what we're doing here. And just like, we just need to get that information to the people. What they do with it from there, everybody needs multiple touch points. And some people are some politicians are just so buried in their own ideology that they can't see outside of it. But the education is where it has to happen. And you mentioned those flyers, like, to give a little more context. So you mentioned Square, for example. They're going to start accepting November 10th Bitcoin payments, not just you converting it to store of value, but also the payments. Well, I'm sure Square is going to do a great job of providing information. Like, they have a couple YouTube videos, and they have a website that provides information, but actually providing that professional development. I don't know, if every Square merchant is going to have that kind of information. So to kind of give you an idea, back up to when Steak and Shake first started, we went around all the Steak and Shakes around our area. A couple weren't set up. The ones that were didn't really know how to use it. I ended up talking to the owner of the franchisee guy for all of Central Illinois, or most of Central Illinois. And nothing against him. It kind of was indicative of that lack of professional development. He was saying they were told on a Friday that they're going live on a Monday. And that was the extent of it. Not how to use it, not how to work with it. Definitely didn't train the other employees. The places I walked in the first day, one of the cooks, when I mentioned Bitcoin, he literally, as he's flipping burgers, just leans over and says, "Scam." It's like, oh my God.
Oh,
You're not even going to like talk to your employees about this? There's so many issues, not just in what is Bitcoin and why is it good for you, but even like how to use it.
right.
I talked to him, and he said, well, he had to buy a bunch of iPads so that they could make transactions in the window, right? But there was no training involved. I went through the window and they just couldn't figure it out, you know? So he ended up paying hundreds of dollars for all these iPads that he can't use. Another issue that they had was they had amassed a certain amount, so many hundred of dollars of Bitcoin that they received, but he couldn't withdraw it.
You didn't know how?
He didn't know how, and they use Speed Wallet, but then you got to connect it to Plaid to connect to your bank, and he had issues with that, and there was nothing of that. So what I'm getting at is, like, the education of Bitcoin, of like what its use, is only part of it.
Right.
It's like the integration into the traditional system and helping people who have no knowledge of that. There's a big gap.
It's so important that they understand why they should accept it, why it would benefit them to accept it. When you think of it people that call it a scam, you can accept Bitcoin with zero processing fees. You don't have to pay some middleman for a settlement and a settlement layer. Bitcoin is peer to peer, so you can just save money on that. And that's important for not just companies like Steak and Shake, but for small businesses, it's very important because the way that the world has gotten inflation growing and it's suffocating small business. So small business needs something like this to help them. What I've noticed is whenever I tried to incentivize clients to spend with Bitcoin, I would incentivize them with a discount because I wanted people to learn how to use it. And it didn't take long. People that have no idea how to use Bitcoin, it's as easy as scanning a QR code, showing them where to buy the Bitcoin, how to connect it to their bank, and then sending it to you. And that's how simple it is. And once they did it, they thought, "Oh, wow, that was so easy. And now I know how to use Bitcoin. I know how to spend Bitcoin. I know how to buy it." So
And it should be that easy.
it is. I mean, and that's all it takes. Keeping it simple is the best thing, keeping it short. And people have a short attention span these days. I'm sure you see that being a teacher.
Boy, yeah. Well, and it's like eating a steak. You're not gonna just shove the whole thing in your mouth. You're gonna cut it into bite-sized chunks, and you're gonna enjoy it that way. And the same thing with education. There's a tipping point where they just too much, and then they shut off, and everything before kind of just gets dumped. And that's not how your brain works. So it takes knowing who you're talking to, what level they're at. Um, when I go in to talk to anybody, first ask what do you know about it, or what's your definition of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And most people will say I don't know anything, but some people will try and describe it, and that's where you got to go. You got to find out what they know, and then just add on to that, like scaffold that understanding. But you're right. It is it is and should be easy. The problem is that people have usually the things that you don't know, you overcomplicate in your mind, don't realize that it can be simple. Um, but with that Steak and Shake example, the point I was trying to make is that they there is that gap, and there needs to be something to fill that, and that's kind of part of what we're doing at the Illinois Bitcoin Council, is trying to fill that gap with the education, find out where the gaps are. It's like the get in where you fit in thing.
Yeah.
We're all businesses talking to politicians, talking, trying to get education across the board, but you got to find out where it's needed first.
Do you think that Square is used primarily at small businesses instead of big companies, or do you think it's used?
That's a good question. I think so, because you mentioned the website. They have a giveandgetlocal.com, I believe is what it is. And that's actually what we're using to locate the businesses. So we're printing out for our volunteers in the state. We're printing out flyers from the IBC that kind of talk about the benefits of the Lightning Network. And like I'm just going online and I see, I type in my city. I'm in Springfield, Illinois, and I do see more smaller mid businesses. I see some nicer upscale restaurants. I see like a recycled sports store where we get all of my son and daughter's equipment. There's a lot of small and medium businesses that seem to use it. I don't see a lot of big name. That's more for the other.
Well, yeah, you were saying that what's happening with Square and Bitcoin as payment is going to put pressure on Toast and other users.
And a lot of them, like even Clover, I remember it was a year or two ago, they were discussing using, and Clover's another really big one. They were discussing like doing a pilot program for accepting Bitcoin. And we even reached out to them. I was part of the chief lightning officers. They're a group out of Denver, out of Colorado. And the Clover people got back to us and like, how did you hear about this? We're not ready to live or anything like that. I'm like,
Wow, look at.
we're here. We're here to help. And we were doing similar things on a smaller scale.
See, I love that. You go and find the information, you find out this news, you find out what's happening, and you're interested to reach out and help, but you're actually offering support, so and you do it because you care for, the adoption to grow because it would benefit everybody.
To me, that goes down to the type of system. I mean, you spoke with Jeff Booth, and nobody says it better about the system. But to me, it's like a system that has that limited supply that can't be easily be changed versus a system that just erratically and repeatedly prints at will. It's amazing how that, or as Saylor says, that adiabatic system, how it can keep that energy in and how that benefits everybody because everybody in the system wants to help. And when they do, it helps everybody else, which isn't the same with a, like a lossless system isn't the same as a system that just loses energy. It's like not that, there's not that desire, that incentive, or even that recognition that what I do helps others.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that you try and talk to a normie about that. Like, wait, 21 million? They're so still not understanding the very basic foundational structures to get to a higher level understanding.
Yeah. It's hard to grasp the idea that there's something that was discovered, created that cannot be manipulated. Everyone thinks that, well, what happens when they change that? And it can't be done. And once you find out why it can't be done and why it's easier to attack any other network in the world instead of Bitcoin, that's why it can't be changed. That's a really hard idea to wrap your head around because there's nothing actually scarce, like fundamentally scarce, completely scarce. So it's hard to educate them on that because they don't see that anywhere else in the world. There's nothing to compare it to.
There's that, and there's also the fact I read a study that said, big headline, 2 out of every 3 adults is considered financially illiterate, American adults. So not only do they not see something similar that they can compare, but just even the basics. Here's a fun one. This has nothing to do with money, but just kind of to show you what we're trying to build. 40% of Americans didn't know that chips came from potatoes.
No way. That can't be real. I mean,
But
I believe it sadly, but I don't want to.
the way it was presented
Uh,
came
yeah.
from a real study.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. It's just like we got to be able to teach just basic fundamental knowledge. It's
Yeah.
coming from a career educator,
If 40% of the people had no idea, that means that 40% of the people are okay with eating,
just whatever.
yeah, like something that is not digestible by the human body, like fake food, and you're okay with eating, something that could harm you, really, because your body's not meant to eat that. It's not natural. It's just chips. I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
That kind of goes along with one of our goals here at the IBC. One of our pillars is education. And over the summer, I created a 16-week course for financial literacy and Bitcoin education. And especially in Illinois, but anywhere really, it'd be a hard lift to try and get that into public education. So we're trying to start with trying to reach out to homeschools, trying to reach out to alternative education, areas of education. And we partner with Me Premier Bitcoin. Shout out to them. And we have this 16-week course. Most of it is financial literacy, focused on, probably aimed towards middle school, I would say. Some lower high school would get it. Some lower grades might get it, but about middle school. And the first 12 weeks are just very basic supply and demand, goods and services.
Yeah.
On up, and it gets into more of like some economic thought, Austrian economics, and time preference that finish out with Bitcoin and why that is important.
Do
But
you think it would be hard to get that into public schools?
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would be next to impossible. But we're talking to politicians. We've got a couple that said into next year we can talk about having get-togethers with people in education and show them.
I mean, the only thing I remember learning about money when I was in high school,
Mhm.
it was just how to balance a checkbook, money coming in, money going out, but it wasn't teaching you what money is. It wasn't teaching you anything about that. And that's what people need to learn. And I think part of it too, it's maybe such a taboo subject because money is the root of pain. People avoid it, and that's why they're financially illiterate because it's caused so much pain in families over the year and struggle. So maybe people just don't like to really spend time learning about it because they just think, well, it's never worked for me. I just hustle for it. I have to do it. But it's not something you understand because it's it's kind of been like a mirage, like something you shouldn't understand and something they don't want you to really understand. And Bitcoin allows us to actually get to the point where we realize what it is and what your time spent working really is,
That whole a little inflation is a good thing. It's like, okay, good for who?
right?
Good for the people that are amassing massive amounts of debt to keep their interest payments down, you know.
Right. I hate to think that people who are entrepreneurs think that, people need to be given loans and capital and everything so that they could grow the economy. And that's why inflation is necessary because you need to keep growing. On a Bitcoin standard, the world could look so different. People are just confused on what they're told.
And it's not so
Um,
much the learning, but also the unlearning. So
and
that,
how hard is it for you to speak to the politicians you've been speaking to, or for anyone you're connected with that's been talking to politicians? Are they stuck? Is it hard to get through to them to even want to have a conversation about this? Are people in this identity politics sort of trap, or do you think that they're open to these types of conversations?
so I've reached out to every state senator, and I've gotten to talk to 15%, maybe up to 20. A lot of them are open-minded, and both sides of the aisle. You know, Bitcoin is for everybody. I feel like everybody can benefit from it. Everybody's constituents can benefit. So we're not partisan in that regard. Most of them will start out with, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I've only had a few. I just recently had a senator from up around Chicago that started the conversation with, it's nothing, it's tulips. Is basically her stance.
Right.
So aside from that, you know, there's she already in her mindset, somebody told her that, and that's what it is, and there's no changing her mind. It was a 15, 20-minute conversation that was just, she's giving me my speaking points, so I appreciate that. They're giving me my time to speak.
Do you think that in that situation, she gave you time to share knowledge and she was listening, or
I was taking it as such, I was using it as that, but I mean, you can read people, you can read their
yeah,
body language, you can read their reactions. It was very straight and very just like, I took it as, you're not going to change my mind.
right?
At that point, I gave my speaking points and said how it can help her constituents. And she said, thank you very much. And that was the end of the conversation.
Even for people like that, you're still planting a seed. You're still getting them to wonder why you came in. She could tell your body language and you were so passionate and you were determined, to teach. And I think that plants a seed alone, just your energy and wondering why was he like that? Why does he believe so much?
She did say, I can tell that you're very passionate about that. She did say that. Uh,
Okay.
and most of them, you know, they want to know a little bit, and they
Yeah.
recognize that it's growing, and there's not anything you can do to stop it. I try and make the point that it's important for you to know what you're talking about, not only to govern properly, but with an increase in the growing number of Bitcoiners from both sides of the aisle, that's going to affect your vote at some point. And that's a hard thing to say to some people, because if they're neutral to negative, that might push them away. Like, well, you think you can? I don't even know how to describe that, but
But yeah,
most of them.
it would affect their, even if it's a enough of a vote to, if it's like how the swing states are, if it's enough of a vote to even a 2% difference, it could swing one way or the other. So you could lose your position if you don't have an open mind or you're wanting to change. And maybe some of these people, I wonder if they just have the type of connections where the people they know, maybe them like themselves, might be benefiting from this, fiat system that's destroying most livelihoods and most people. So because they're benefiting from it, maybe the certain people you're talking to, like knowing who you're talking to, right? Um, if they're the type of people that are benefiting from it, or they have connections to friends or family that are benefiting from it, they don't want to hear something that could threaten that, because those types of people enjoy this. They don't want to see change. They're happy with how it's going. But I think maybe showing them how it just having a future with a bigger and bigger wealth gap isn't a good future, even if it benefits those people.
Well, and I don't know personally, I tend not to focus on the wealth gap
Hmm.
as much as I do like the rising tide lifts all boats, because there are going to be whales and they're going to be ultra wealthy.
Yeah.
But I I'm just a person that I don't it doesn't matter what they're doing. I'm going about my life, and if they're very rich or just the same amount of richness, it doesn't affect my life. If we're able to bring everybody up, then we're all rising.
Right.
And that's the difference between like different political systems in my view is like I believe true capitalism has the ability to lift everybody up. We don't live in a true capitalistic society, um, partly because of fiat, but we can get into reasons. But other systems that are probably antithetical to Bitcoin, communism, socialism, whatever, it tends to try and level things out by bringing others down to bring others up. And yes, equality in certain ways is a great thing, but to bring others up, if you have to bring others down, I don't understand that. Why can't we all bring each other up? And Bitcoin, going back to that limited supply that is next to impossible to change, that has that ability to. The problem is we need to port people over into that system.
Right. So what's your biggest focus right now? What are you working on currently?
Three areas are education, the 16-week curriculum. We also have an 8-week course for small to medium businesses to understand the Lightning Network. It starts with a little bit of Bitcoin, goes into Lightning of what it is, and then ends with how to use it, the different like service providers or whatever. That's the education side. And we're in the process of building the Illinois Bitcoin Foundation, a 501c3, and all of that's going to be basically its own thing. We have the advocacy initiative where reaching out to senators. Now I'm going to start reaching out to representatives in the near future, depending on how state politics goes. We have a list of proposed pieces of legislation, what you would see from the other states that have been doing pro Bitcoin legislation, very similar to those. Um, right now, with our current system, anything that's pro Bitcoin is deemed pro Trump. Therefore, it's dead in the water. Like we had,
Is that because of the prior administration?
we just senator up around Rockford, Bello, he put forth the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve bill last year, or earlier this year, probably. And he actually had bipartisan support
It's amazing.
until Governor Pritzker got a hold of it, or his people got a hold of it, and basically had the Democratic side back out.
Oh no. I thought it was passed recently. Did they approve
Yes,
it?
no, I think you're thinking of the Alt Geld Bitcoin Reserve,
Yeah.
which we could talk about, Tobias. So we will be suggesting legislation depending on how everything works out in the next year or so. And then the collaboration side of it is the businesses, and we're focusing our energy on trying to reach out to Square merchants, help them understand, get them to flip the switch, so to speak. But we also have other side initiatives we're supporting. So a guy I told you about, Andrew Tillman, he runs the Midwest Bitcoin Summit. He has started the the Bitcoin Scholarship Foundation, and he'd do a much better job of describing it. But basically, giving $500 in Bitcoin to children from low socioeconomic status, for disadvantaged households, and time locking it over a long span over their childhood, and along the way providing education. And
I love that.
currently, the IBC, soon to be also the IBF, that'll help with curriculum development, something that I'm passionate about. So we're helping try and build that out. And then you mentioned earlier the Altgeld Bitcoin Reserve, Tobias Shepard. This guy's amazing. He has created the first community strategic reserve for this place, Altgeld, Chicago. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
So Altgeld, it was basically like think post World War II Section 8 housing for the African American population who were also veterans of that time. They built this large housing, and as with many government programs, it just went to crap. It was not taken care of, and now it's an area of poverty in Chicago. Tobias is helping raise funds in Bitcoin as its own community Bitcoin reserve, like a strategic Bitcoin reserve for this one area.
That's amazing.
And along with Senator Cabello, who I mentioned earlier, they got that put through the House, the Illinois House.
Is
So
that the
that's
first?
first officially recognized, yes.
That's amazing. That's such huge news.
It is, and it needs to be out there more. And currently, the IBC is just helping in a support role, trying to help promote it, trying to get the word out there, and whatever we can do to help that.
That
This
makes
needs to
me so
happen.
proud because I don't feel like Illinois would ever be the first state typically to do something like this. So that makes me very proud to be an Illinoisan, to see something like this happening and you guys are making it happen. I'm just so excited about that. So how does that work again? So it's
a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So I'm interested in digging into the details myself. I've only had a couple introductory.
very new, right? It
Very
just
new.
yeah.
Yeah, he got to go. Tobias was telling me he got to go out to DC, got to meet Saylor, and he's got his own. Tobias has his own books. It's kind of similar to the Bitcoin Standard, but from a local community viewpoint.
Right.
And he's selling that, and most of the proceeds are going towards funding the All Guild Bitcoin Reserve.
That's amazing because you actually are doing something that you see change happening in the world and for the better. Politicians should serve the people, right? That should be the main goal of all politicians is to see a better community around you and support that change, and you shouldn't be there just to robotically check off boxes.
Yeah, it's like my kids. I love my kids. I want to raise them to be good human beings, be good adults. I don't want to particularly just give them food and a place to stay throughout their entire life. When they get to a certain age, hopefully I've given them enough support. My wife and I have given them enough support where they can go out on their own. And I kind of see that in similar situations. Like, are we really supporting people just by keeping them on the dole? You know what I'm saying? Let's try and find ways to grow them out of it so that they can support themselves and flourish that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's literally like that's what being a good parent is. Being a public servant, you want to give people the right tools and you want to help them be independent.
Come
And they
from a
don't have,
place of love, right?
yeah,
Right.
right. And even the scholarship fund, I love that there's an incentive there, because it's a nonprofit. And if you think about donating $500 per scholarship and it goes to these low income families or children, this being a nonprofit, it's a tax deductible donation. There's an incentive there to do that. There's people that donate to all sorts of charities. And if you're a Bitcoiner, wouldn't you want to see, this time locking of Bitcoin into the future for them to actually and educate them in the process?
Well, and I love that the time locking feature also because they get to see not only grow, but the volatility. And volatility in Bitcoin is a huge roadblock for many people. And I know personally, after being through many cycles, I've been through many 50+% drawdowns. The way I look at volatility is completely different now. Imagine if we can teach these kids or give them the experience of watching volatility happen, but over the course of time, it's still growing. I mean, that's setting up for future success, not just in money, but in life, right? Like they feel that they see that go up to 1,000 and it goes down to 700. You're like, whoa. And then you got to deal with that, but you can't really pull that out. You know what I'm saying? So I think just giving them that opportunity, seeing it grow and crash and grow and crash and higher highs and higher lows and all that,
Well, that's why it mimics life, because you're right. It's because you do have ups and downs in life, but you're always growing. You're always changing. You're learning from these lessons. Bitcoin teaches you a lot. And you're right. It teaches these kids something that they lack. They lack attention, which is also patience. So when you learn about Bitcoin and you see these ups and downs and you know that it's locked, you can't remove this money until a certain age. So you watch it move up and down, but over time go up. It's such a good thing to teach kids the patience. And I'm excited. The first scholarship fund,
Yes,
it's be the first event, coming up.
that's right. We have that coming up in just a few weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew will be there. You'll be there. Not sure if Jeff. I haven't mentioned. Big shout out, Jeff Helsenbeck, aka Sippy. He's our vice president, board member. He is the collaboration coordinator. This guy, he's amazing. He does a lot of work. He's the one who hosted our meet and greet um, out of Naperville. Got to give a lot of support, a lot of praise to him for getting this up and running. Um, but there's been a lot of volunteers. And speaking of, if you are in Illinois and you're watching this and any of this is resonating with you, yes, we're looking for members. We're also looking for volunteers because that's where this grows. Me
Yeah.
being teacher all day during the school year, there's only so much I can do. Jeff, he's a pilot and he's almost out, but he's still in the air guard. Only so much he can do, but we're looking for members and volunteers.
Yeah. And you're looking for volunteers of all different backgrounds. You have people who are the connectors, the people who can make these connections and people who can spread the word and, almost like the promoters. There's people that are the educators, there's the technologists, the financial group. There's so many people like you can offer support in any different way. So just reach out and see how you can help, because maybe you don't think you could help. Even me being a podcaster, I was so happy you reached out to me. And every person that you reach, makes a difference. Being somebody who isn't in education, isn't in finance, but has a podcast and I can share voices, I can help in that way. So you may not think you could do something, but reach out, see how you could help. And you'd be surprised at how your skills can be benefiting the Illinois Bitcoin
And
Council.
that's what I do when I talk to people who have volunteered. It's like, what do you like? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? I mean, that was an easy call with you. Thank you so much. You hosted our very first IBC Spaces. I've gotten through the the learning hurdles.
That was amazing. I mean, thank you so much for that.
I'm looking forward to many more of those. Is it first Tuesday?
We were thinking the first Tuesday of every month, we're going to host an X Space for the Illinois Bitcoin Council. And yes, thank you for having me host that. It was a great turnout. We were still getting used to running spaces, but we figured it out. People really enjoyed it and people were looking forward to the next one. It's nice to hear, and there's so much happening. It's once a month. A lot is changing, so it's a nice place to catch up and see what Illinois is doing. And even for people not in Illinois, who want to join the space, I mean, you can see if there's any way you can get something like this started in your state and learn and collaborate from each other. And how far along do you think Illinois is compared? Like, how many other states?
Yeah, there's a Texas Blockchain Council. That's obviously with all the mining. That's just huge. Amber in Michigan, the Michigan Bitcoin Trade Council. Amber Harris is doing a great job up there. I've heard of a few others, but there's a lot of blockchain and this and that. But as far as Bitcoin only, I know for sure Michigan. Thought I heard something around Virginia. I know the South Carolina Blockchain uh, Council, but it's slow and steady. I had some people ask me why Illinois, and to me, it's just like this is where we need it the most. It's not an easy lift, and so we got to do some we got some catching up to do.
And if people
So
could see that it could be done in Illinois, which it's not easy, people know how politics can be in Illinois. If things can be changed here and people could understand here and you could teach politicians in this state, it's hope for other states and people to take that initiative in their own state, because you can't do it all, right? You and Jeff, you guys can't make all the connections, but people can be inspired. You can inspire others to take part and to show that you can actually make a difference. Your voice can make a difference, your connections, your help in educating can make a huge difference.
Bitcoin is ground up. It's decentralized. It's bottom up, and that's kind of what we're doing here too.
It's so great to see, and I can't wait for the next space. There's so much happening that I want to know all the changes that are happening in Illinois. It makes me so proud. And I thank you for your time. I know you also have to get back to work today. And thank you for joining us on your break and doing everything that you do. Thank you for all the shout outs you gave to everybody in the Illinois Bitcoin Council, to Jeff for doing everything with you, being your partner and helping with getting this thing going and reaching out to people. Looking forward to all the future events, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And we'll keep spreading the word.
Thank you, Staci. It's been an honor. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.